Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at Netflix. Before jumping into the DCF, there's a few things I think that need to be covered, from the streaming wars to declining membership growth. There's a lot of things to be worried about going forward, but maybe the current valuation already takes these things into account. First, let us quickly talk about the streaming wars. If you haven't been following it, just about every company that has ever produced a TV show now has a streaming service. We have Hulu, Hulu ad-free, Hulu with sports, Disney+, Netflix, HBO Max, Paramount+, Peacock, Showtime, Amazon Prime, ESPN+, Apple TV+, YouTube TV, Sling TV, and there's probably even a few more that I missed. To sum it up, there is a ton of competition, and it only appears to be growing. Instead of seeing consolidation like we saw early on with streaming services, where you got a kind of one-stop shop with Netflix, you now need to subscribe to multiple services to actually get what you want. We're seeing the content owners wait for their contracts to expire with the Hulus and Netflixes to then launch their own streaming service. I'm specifically looking at you, Peacock, taking The Office from us. All this is to say, Netflix used to be the clear leader with the best content. Today, this is less obvious, and there's a lot of strong competition. Netflix is still the clear number one based off subscription numbers with an impressive 221 million subscribers, with Disney Plus close behind at 130 million subscribers. Now, the concerning trend we are seeing is the massive decline in new subscribers for Netflix. Netflix finished 2021 adding 18.2 million subscribers. Compared that to 36.5 million subscribers in 2020 and 27.8 million subscribers in 2019. They're not just down from 2020, which benefited from COVID, and the entire world sitting at home, but also down 33% compared to 2019. Compare this to Disney Plus, where we saw 2021 adding 35 million subscribers and 2020 adding nearly 70 million subscribers. Both of these years, they experienced almost double the growth of new subscribers compared to Netflix. It needs to be noted though that Netflix is twice as large as Disney Plus, so we should see lower growth, but to see 50% less growth seems alarming, and the rate at which Disney is catching up to Netflix is alarming. And if we actually take the total subscription numbers of all Disney streaming services, so Hulu, ESPN+, and Disney+, there's a total 195 million subscribers across all their platforms, making them just barely smaller than Netflix. Considering that Disney+ launched only a few years ago and has almost grown to the same size, this provides concern on a going forward basis. This leads to the question of, can revenue growth stay as impressive as it has been historically, or will the decreasing new members drive slower revenue growth? We've seen an impressive revenue growth near 30% in 2019, 24% in 2020, and 20% in 2021. For Q1 though, Netflix is providing guidance of just around 10%. This leads me to believe Netflix will have to find new ways to drive revenue growth. Price hikes is the first thing that comes to mind, and we've seen historically Netflix raises prices every other year in 2014, 2015, 2017, 2019, 2020, and planned in 2022. So it goes without a doubt that Netflix will continue to raise prices, at least biannually, but what else can they do in addition to this? Well, they also recently announced an additional $2.99 surcharge for password sharing. There's been a lot of pushback by customers so far after this announcement, but it's still to be seen if this will actually drive increased revenue or lose customers. The next thing I want to hit on quickly is content creation. It goes without saying that Netflix has done a great job with creating original content to keep subscribers. Looking at 2021 alone, they have 6 of the top 10 most searched for TV shows with Squid Game, Bridgerton, Cobra Kai, Sweet Tooth, Lupin, and Ginny and Georgia. However, we've started to see a trend where they are producing a lot of filler content, reality shows, that are drastically cheaper to produce, with hits like Too Hot to Handle, The Circle, and Love is Blind. There's nothing inherently bad about this, but it shows how much new content is really king for the streaming wars. If you aren't releasing new content or developing fan bases around your current content, it's hard to retain these subscribers. This is where I think Netflix has been hit the hardest. With original producers taking their content off Netflix, this has left a large gap that Netflix has to fill. To fill this gap, it comes at a cost. We've seen the cost of content development increase from roughly $9 billion in 2016 all the way up to almost $18 billion in 2021. During the same time period though, they have had an impressive tripling in revenue, going from $9 billion to $30 billion. So what we're seeing is that historical levels of content investment were not enough to produce the content that's falling off from other producers. The level of content investment is now similar to that of Disney. Disney had roughly $60 billion in revenue for their services with about $37 billion in costs. This would indicate that Netflix might need to invest just a little bit more over the coming years to keep a similar proportion of content creation to revenue as Disney. Now, the one thing I'd like much more about Disney is the content it produces has a very loyal fan base. Things like Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and then obviously Disney. Everything they produce is almost guaranteed to be a hit and already has a very large and loyal fan base. Netflix doesn't quite have the same following for any of their programming. While Stranger Things and Squid Games have both, proven incredibly successful, they don't quite have that same thing that Marvel and Star Wars has. Netflix hasn't yet built that fan loyalty that Disney has around their content. Now that we've covered some of the bigger issues and concerns that I have noticed in the last few years, let's turn over to the DCF. If we incorporate these higher content costs and slower revenue growth from reduced subscribers, if we get a buy, hold, or sell on Netflix stock. I've provided a link to the DCF below in the comments. Make sure to download the template and make any adjustments you might not agree with. To do this, click the link below, and then you're going to go File, Download, and this will allow you to edit the file in real time. Now, hopping right into my DCF, you can see I kept pretty conservative revenue estimates. I've calculated this based on estimates of new users added annually and a nominal increase to the monthly cost, averaging about 5% a year in monthly costs. With these assumptions, we have revenue almost tripling over the next decade, going from $30 billion in 2021 to almost $90 billion in 2031. The next big assumption to talk through is COGS. This is held flat for the next decade. Based on what I'm seeing for Disney, COGS on content appears to stay above 50% even as a large, mature company. With that, I've held Netflix at its current proportion of 58% for the next decade. Based on the assumption, they'll need to continue investing in content if they want to keep subscriber growth up. With these assumptions, I get a valuation between $140 to $160 billion. This translates to a share price between $323 and $352. Based on this, I'd say Netflix is a hold. It's not severely overvalued at its current share price of $375 compared to our conservative valuation, but I wouldn't go into a position at its current price either. If Netflix comes out with new products or revenue streams like theatrical releases, then we could look back at our DCF and make, certain adjustments. But until there's more guidance and clarity around Netflix really strategy after the streaming wars, I'd sit this one out if I don't already have a position, or I'd hold if I do. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. And if you haven't already, please click the like button and subscribe below.